So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Today we're going to be answering Ask HR subreddit questions because I'm banned. This is part of a long-running series on this channel to go over your questions about HR problems and give an honest response of what should happen, what your response should be. And I think it's an interesting insight into the things that an HR manager might go into. So we've got a question from a newly hired receptionist in California. We've got a hard of hearing in an office setting also in California. And finally, we've got appointments for mother's cancer out in Missouri. So let's start with the question. This person is a newly hired receptionist. They're hourly, making $25 an hour, which at this point, that's a little bit low considering that a lot of the minimum wages have gone up, especially in doctors' offices. But regardless, they're making $25 an hour in Los Angeles and working a lot of overtime because the clinic has a lot of crazy hours. The office manager asked her, hey, can you keep it to 40 hours a week because the doctor doesn't want to pay overtime? And then recently she said, well, let's move you to salary because it's easier on payroll. Well, this is the struggle. So this position is certainly not an exempt level position in the United States. There are tests with which someone might do to make that determination. And this isn't one of them, right? Ultimately, this, you can't just switch hourly to salary without some very serious review of the job itself and what it entails. And frankly, this one will never meet the test. The office manager doesn't know what they're doing. Now, it doesn't really, in theory at least, it doesn't reach to actionable until you start getting overtime. So, if you work 1 minute longer than 40 hours, then you should be paid salary. But other than that, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter yet. It will, but it doesn't matter until that point. So you could advise them of it, but then let them make their decision, and then begin to write down the hours that you work more than 40. And as soon as it gets actionable and you've notified them, I would notify the labor board, right? I would probably, advise them of what it takes to become a salaried person, and link down below so that anyone watching can understand what that means. But ultimately, I would advise them and then move forward and then file a Department of Labor charge if it gets out of hand. This is what happens when small offices try to hire and move people around. In a reasonable sized organization, any organization that I worked for, this would go through a lot of review, because the companies I worked for are quite big. But here, that's sort of what happens with the small businesses. The next question is out of California, and it says, looking for a job for a while in whatever industry that they can, and he discloses that they can't hear on the phone. And most jobs require their employees to answer the phone, so they're aware it could cause problems. And the question is, they got called for an interview working a front desk at an RV park. And the question is, should I disclose the disability in the interview or wait till they're hired to request accommodations? And then if you're hired, what are some of the potential accommodations they can request? And so the answer is wait until you've got an offer letter in hand and then tell them. And then once you're hired, go through Jan, AskJan.org, link down below if you want to check them out. They're run through West Virginia University. They are a absolute godsend for anyone with a disability to try to figure out how to navigate these settings and what accommodations that you could do. Some of the potential accommodations, of course, could be speech to text software. It's just, at some point you have to imagine that it's a reasonable accommodation. And if that's a small RV park, that may be too expensive. And that's something to be mindful of, is that it's a reasonable accommodation, not any accommodation, and it's not carte blanche. It is an interactive process where you work with the employer to make these decisions. And frankly, that could be a bit too much for an RV park. I really don't know. I don't know what a professional level of those things cost. But AskJan.org is something that could be a godsend for someone in this position. The next one up is from Missouri. It says, appointments for my mother's cancer. Mother's got diagnosed with cancer. They're starting radiation and chemo. Director said that they could take chemo appointments, and then the HR department said that they have to fill out FMLA in order for them to take her to appointments, even though they're making up the time. And the question is, I could understand this if I wasn't going to be making up the time. And this is a good HR department. This is an HR department that knows what they're doing and understands the world in which they're swimming in. And the answer is yes, you absolutely should be taking FMLA. It protects your job. You never know when another director would come in and change the script altogether. You don't know how your hours will be viewed. And you absolutely want that protection, and it's there for you. So yes, I would embrace it. Yes, I would go for it. It sounds a little weird, I understand, but I fully encourage anyone who has situations like this to take every FMLA chance that they have. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Have you been switched from hourly to salary? How did that go? What did that look like? Let me know. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.